episode.
Some episode something sometime in 2024.
15.
It's got to be like 220 or something.
It might,
Maybe 20.
be.
Maybe episode 20.
Yeah, something. I guess I
don't
should
know.
go through and like number them all on YouTube. Figure it
So,
out.
one of our first like 3 was Darcy and I at the night before the Super Bowl championship parade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like one of the first 3.
Jimmy
so it has
had
been
just-
that long ago.
Jimmy had just left our hotel,
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yep, I remember that.
Night, Asa. Love you.
Yeah, because I met you down there. They wouldn't let you park.
Right. I
Yep.
drove I rode the Rainbird scooter or whatever it's called,
Right.
like from
Browns.
from the Irish store. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And
I rode the streetcar from, I don't know, uptown a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was a
Then
good
when I
night.
went to get back on it, it wasn't running for like another 20, 30 minutes. So I had to sit there and wait.
That's never the best idea up in Kansas City, sitting and waiting.
hmm It was like 1 o'clock in the morning or something. Maybe midnight. I don't remember.
Yeah, it was a late one.
It was just, it was me and Joel and some homeless feller sitting there.
With a Chiefs hat
Yep. He was
Yeah,
wearing
we went
and
down.
no wallet.
Yeah, he had
We went
lost his
down-
wallet, left it at the 7-Eleven.
And remember, when we were sitting there, the guy was already setting up with his music, his
Oh, yeah.
speaker and
Some,
a barrel
like
fire,
a DJ or something.
and he
Yep.
was DJing, and he was still DJing the next morning when we went out there.
Oh yeah, and he was going hard, and there was not more than 3 people paying attention to him,
No,
and they came with him, I think.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
I was actually a
That
little
was funny.
surprised they were allowing the barrel fire though, like in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
Well, they allowed
Uh,
people shooting people later on that day.
Has anybody
Yeah.
ever figured out what that deal was about? Because like, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that we were like a block away from one of those shootings, and I never did figure out how it was that we made it all the way back to lunch, blocks like 2 miles away, and it was just then on the TV. Remember
yeah, it
that?
was delayed for sure. Yep.
It was real delayed because it was happening right as we drove away.
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
Yeah, and so what happened then is it made things confusing because we heard it happen, and then 25 minutes later or whatever, they're talking about it on the TV, and we're like, "Oh, there's more," but somehow there weren't.
It was just the same thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was a weird deal, weird day. So this year, when they win the Super Bowl, you think they'll have a parade again, or do you think
Boy,
that they'll tone it down?
I think they will, but that was immediately the question after last year's. Is can we even do it? The thing is it was completely unrelated.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that will help us be able to.
Well, not long after that parade was the St. Patrick's Day parade, and they were talking about canceling that one,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't.
Right. Yep.
It's a goofy deal. I mean,
For
Look
sure.
at this.
if you tend to be armed, it definitely draws into question like,
Oh,
is
the
there
sign
really
last
any
night.
point
Mm-hmm.
in being armed in a scenario like that? Like, could Like, how would you ever deploy a weapon in that scenario? Like, so many people around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not very responsibly. That's for sure.
Not very many scenarios where it would be advantageous at all.
Right. Original Bottle and Bond.
This is the original first release.
Hold a super still. You're choppy on mine.
That much left.
That's not much.
Nope.
Ben
Holiday. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Let's see what I got. I don't have anything over here, so I gotta go hunt for it.
I stood in line with Anna, Jimmy's Anna, to get this bottle. Because Jimmy was in. Right? Yeah, you were. Where were you?
I don't remember. It was somewhere
you were maybe
not here.
With maybe Heath and Jeremy.
Yeah, that's probably what I was doing.
Maybe
that sounds right.
It was.
Was it October?
Well, it was bottled in the spring of 2022. So no, because it was released right after it was bottled. So where were you in probably June? Although
I don't have any bottles of that open.
You don't?
Hey, Darcy.
No, I have a couple that are unopened though.
Unrelated to the bottling question.
Okay.
Are you able, if I shared something on Instagram, are you able to share it on this podcast? Can you share screen and play it? Because I sent you something on Instagram that's really for your wife, but I want you to show it to her. Yeah, I want you to show it to her because I think that it's a therapy that she could do. I tried to talk my wife into doing this therapy, but she's not interested.
Okay, so I have to.
Or I can
there any way? Yeah, email it to me. That'll make it easier for me to grab it and put it up.
Okay, let me see if I can. I'm gonna send as a reply to this email. Okay, I just sent it.
Okay.
It'd be funny if you could play it live and then we could comment on it.
Okay.
Did it come through?
Here we go. I'm getting there. Gmail.
Not to totally change subjects, but I sent this to my wife, and I'll tell you how she responded in a minute.
Are we getting ready to watch a video?
I think so.
It's
if therapy I can make it work.
For certain conditions.
All right. Okay. All right. So now if I go back to all right, here we go. Share screen. That share. Is there sounds to it?
It should be.
Oh, here we go.
man.
Uh,
He does like 3 of them.
oh
And
man.
the first 2, he like flinches real bad. That last one, he didn't flinch real bad.
So, what is the
Uh,
purpose of this therapy?
it's therapy for balloon poppers, like people who can't.
There.
So Darcy, you give your version of how your wife feels about your interpretation of how she feels about balloons popping. And she has no physical condition that causes this per se.
No. If Anna
Intense rage?
no, it's fear. If she sees an inflated balloon, she immediately tenses up and gets ready to plug her ears.
At the sight
She
of
sees
an inflated
an
balloon.
inflated balloon. Yeah.
Because it's getting ready to pop.
It probably
Because
will
there's
pop.
a clown nearby.
No, it doesn't matter. Mostly because there's probably a child nearby, which is going to raise the chances of it popping.
Dang, it is a good thing she wasn't hanging out here a couple of Sundays ago during the Chiefs game.
Yeah, guess have some balloons going.
Like 20 balloons going, and then my little nephew was here who's 1, and he was going around hitting them with a fly swatter and popping them. Just one right after another.
Yeah,
So
she would have had to go outside.
So for anybody who's watching the podcast that doesn't know, Darcy and I we married sisters. Anna and I, Anna, Jimmy
and Darcy and I are
and
both
Darcy
married
Anna's. That's the connection.
Yeah.
That's how we all know each other, is because we married sisters and they married Anna's.
That makes sense.
I just made that connection. That was pretty crazy how I made those connections. Like all those random.
Just like Kevin Bacon.
Now, yeah. So my wife and Darcy's wife have similar, I would say Anna has more reaction to balloons, because Sarah will actually allow balloons to be blown up in her house. Not popped, but actually filled in her house. But the story from my wife is that their little sister had tubes or something in her ears when she was little, and it was like their entire family like basically spent all of the year or years that she had tubes in her ears protecting her from loud sounds. And it was a very intense, that I might be telling this wrong. Is that the story that you've gotten, Darcy?
I don't know anything about that.
It came from them.
There's no way you guys are married to sisters.
The younger sister from balloon pops. But added information about it is that they never, not one of them, and like, I'm pretty sure that if you didn't one time in your childhood ever experience any firecrackers at 4th of July or around 4th of July, then I feel like that's child abuse, personally. And I'm not, Doug, if you're watching, I'm not saying that you're a child abuser. I'm just saying that if you didn't buy your kids fireworks at least one time, that's kind of like the equivalent in my book to not teaching your sons how to work, or not teaching them how to drive, or, I mean, like, it's up there with some of the most negligent parenting that there is, in my opinion.
What do sparklers count?
Sparklers do not count. Sparklers can be lit any time of year without any consequence. It has to be something that can
It has to be something
draw
that's
the
illegal at least some of the time.
exactly. I'm not saying that we should call DFS on my parents-in-law, but like the result is that both of us are married to women who are afraid of pop. Like even if you say pop, they tense up, adrenaline spike. You can just say, like, you start to say like, I'm going to say the p sound.
What about like
Immediate
going to a
adrenaline spike.
professional fireworks show?
Professional. Do what?
What about going to a like professional fireworks show?
Are you a mile away or are you right
No,
under
you're
it?
at it. You're under it. You're
Like
at
you're
it.
under it, like we were at Darcy's house that one time when
Yeah.
Shea was like 3. Living there was probably in their book like kind of not okay. Like there, that one time we were at Darcy's house, there were literal like the shells were from the mortars
They were hitting
falling
our cars
on
and
us.
all around
Yeah,
us.
Yeah.
it was awesome.
I mean,
But
we did that we watched that show every year. But
so
Anna
but
and the girls
they wore
put on headphones.
yeah,
Oh,
headphones.
really?
We
Anna
always
didn't
went
always.
we went to professional fireworks displays also. I don't think that they did as children though. I don't think that our
I don't
wives
think that
did
Anna
even go to that as children because of Esther.
I don't think that I think that balloons are way worse than fireworks for Anna. Like
I
fireworks
know.
in the driveway aren't great, but fireworks in the sky, I think she enjoys those.
I've
But
definitely
she will
heard
put
your
on a
Anna
set of
not be
headphones
happy
if
about the
she.
fireworks in the driveway.
Oh yeah. Well, so Dan and I have known of a couple guys that might have thrown a big piece of firework in the storm sewer in Belton, and then the police came really quickly after that.
We might have known
Yep.
of those people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was amazing how
You
fast
read
they were
you
on
read
there.
the story.
Uh-huh. It was
I
amazing
I
how
heard
fast
of,
they got there.
yeah, didn't you think? I mean, wouldn't you have thought?
Allegedly.
I mean, allegedly.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, they got there really, really fast.
Like the people that did it did one in the storm drain and then did one on a T-post, and like the second the one on the T-post allegedly went off in the backyard, the police were already shining those lights out of their window on houses in the neighborhood,
It was
in the
live-
vicinity of the
Did
house.
you live nearby to be able to witness this thing?
Allegedly. Yes, potentially.
it was quick.
It's amazing. And now in retrospect, it was even more amazing because I reported a handgun stolen and it took 9 hours for the police to get there to take the report.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the idea that they could get there that fast for an explosion, a firecracker, crazy to me.
Was this in the city limits or was this outside of city?
Belton city limits.
Here's the thing about Belton city limits. If you go and look at the records of within the Belton city limits, you can fire a gun on your property in Belton city limits legally, as long as you can guarantee that the projectile will not leave your property.
Guarantee it, huh?
a private citizen, you could build a container style bunker on your property and have a shooting range for private use, not for business, on your property, and the ordinances allow it in Belton.
Kansas City, Missouri allows for it, sort of. Their ordinances are written with distances. So if you have so and so many feet from the nearest property line, you can fire a gun. So like on our property down the street here, 80 acres inside Kansas City city limits, it's not illegal.
Do you like it? Do you have a buffer that is your own property legally? So like certain number of feet from the property line you have to stay? Is that what you mean?
I think, yeah.
So you can't shoot everywhere on the 80 acres, but
correct,
within the perimeter, within a buffer zone, you can shoot.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
How do you think your wife would feel about that form of therapy right there? If she could plug her ears with earplugs?
I
think she'd try
I don't think she would think about it at all.
She wouldn't think about it. She wouldn't. She would feel that it was torture to be put in that scenario. Is that what you
mean? For sure.
Like literal torture.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be kind of fun. I mean,
wouldn't it? Build it.
To do that.
I'll do it.
Let's do it.
What was the contraption that was popping the balloon?
Here's the thing for me.
I think he made a mask and he put like really sharp like drywall needles or something through it to stick out of the mask.
This mustache of mine is a great air diffuser. So like blowing on things does not work very good for me.
Directionally?
Like I can't get much of a air stream coming out of my lips.
You just have to wax it back.
I would have to wax it out of the way really good.
Just get a tube.
Yeah, could do that.
Yeah.
Hey, does this you know, directionally, I'd just be stuck. But I'd still probably stick my face in that thing and let balloons pop on me.
I'm gonna try this.
Boy, I haven't drank this original holiday in a while. It's good.
Me too.
I bought a bottle of it last week and took it with me out to my cousin's house, but we didn't end up getting into it. Anyway, so how was Branson, Jimmy?
Oh man, it was good. It was warm. I did something that I don't normally do in Branson that you might find entertaining, Dan. I went trout fishing on the backside of Bagnell Dam. So Saturday morning, Jared and Ellett and I got up like 6 o'clock in the morning and drove down there and threw our lines in the water. I didn't catch anything. Ellett didn't catch anything. Jared caught one brown trout that was, I don't know, maybe 14 inches long. Decent size.
Cool. Apparently we don't have Dan's sound anymore. He's muted.
Am I back?
Yeah, you are.
That's
just
weird.
got muted somehow.
Oh, I plugged in my microphone. It probably was trying to decide whether to switch me.
So we went down
I was
there
curious
and there were a ton of people fly fishing down there. So many people. And so we were like, I don't even know where to go because those dudes fished, they're like a foot apart from each other. I don't know how they can have such big rods and 50 feet of line they're zinging all over the place and they're standing 3 feet apart.
It's called
there
10
was
and 2.
That's what it's called?
2 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 10 o'clock. There's no width to it at all as long as you know what you're doing. And then you're not going to go over this way because if you go this way, you're going to be, if you go 8 feet that way, you're going to be 8 feet that way. So you got to stay in your lane. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
I
So
heard a song called that.
We didn't know anything about any of that. And we didn't even have fly rigs. We were just fishing with little, spinner, lightweight, ultralight stuff. And so we just walked downstream until we found an area where no one else was fishing, which meant probably the fishing wasn't going to be very good, but we were okay with that because we didn't know what we were doing. So anyway, we did some trout fishing. It was fun.
Yeah. So do you know anything about trout fishing per se?
No.
Other than
no.
That people fly fish a lot for trout?
Right. That's about all I know.
So here's the, I don't know if you'd call it the dirty little secret, but trout fishing is a sport. Fly fishing is the ultimate expression of that sport. Like, people don't actually like eating trout better than they like eating other fish generally, right? I do, because I've been eating trout my whole life. Every year we go trout fishing out in Wyoming and we catch our limits of brook trout. Browns, did you eat that one or did you just let it go?
No, we let it go.
Okay, browns are not as good tasting generally. Rainbows are better tasting fish when they're wild than when they're farm raised, but they take a little bit of not special treatment, but a little bit more care than like filleting off a chunk of it and throwing it in a fry pan. Like they're a little more touchy about cooking. But here's the thing about fly fishing. It's a art form, it's a sport. It is not the most effective way to catch a fish.
That seems a little weird to me.
It's not even like, I go out to Wyoming, and so here's the biggest problem with it is that, like, I can mimic a brown trout with a spinner. I can mimic a brown trout minnow, which brown trout will eat their own minnows, right? I can do that very effectively, and I can catch 30 fish in a day. Maybe not every day, but I can catch a bunch of fish. A guy goes out trout fishing with a spinning reel or with a fly line, and if he catches 3 fish, he's going to be like, I really tore him up today. Okay.
Same spot that you caught 30 fish with a spinner.
Same spot. And here's the thing, like, the thing about, like, if you want to go 20 feet out to the front, you need 20 feet behind you clear. So you got to think about, like, you need twice as much space to get your cast in. Now, somebody who is just like David Beckham of trout fishing will go and they will look and they will go, okay, here's the bugs that I found in the water. I will tie a fly that will mimic those bugs.
That's wild.
And they will fish with a fly that they tied on the spot, or they will come with like 300 different flies and they'll find the stuff. They'll go turn over rocks and they'll be like, okay, this is what the hatch is. This is what bug is coming up. I will get or make a fly that matches what's there to trick the fish. And that person will murder them like over and over and over. Because what happens with trout is there will be a hatch. So imagine like you see the little mosquito larvae like floating through the water. So they're floating through the water and they're going up and they go to the surface and then
Oh man. Suspense.
Man.
They float up.
That was
they get
amazing.
There. What?
We lost you.
Oh no. How long did you
That
lose
was
me?
Like 10 seconds.
So what happens is
No.
they'll be going along and they'll float up to the top and then
I can see your flag moving in the background, Darcy.
oh, stop.
You're not frozen. So that person that knows, like, there is a like steep learning curve, and when people learn how to tie flies and mimic the exact hatch, the fish can't distinguish between your thing that you put in the water and what they are feeding on. Okay. So the other thing that happens is the mayflies and stuff will come land on the water and they will lay their eggs and the eggs will drop down into the bottom of the stream or river. Okay. When those mayflies or whatever the bug is that is landing, the trout will go start hitting top water and taking those bugs. And the fly tire will tie those top waters. Now, so there's fishing. There's like worm and bobber, and then there's like lures, and then there's spinners, and then there's fly fishing. And there's fly fishing. There's this like fly fishing sinkers, fly fishing with a leader that floats, a floating leader. And then there's like fishing wet flies. And then you get to the very top and there are guys who are purists. They will only fly fish with a dry fly. The thing that they throw in the water floats every time, all the time. And if they don't get a top water strike from a fish, they will just go home. They do not care. And so it's like,
So
do you see what I'm saying? Like it's layers of purity. And when you get to the very top, you've got dry fly fishermen.
It might be layers of
they
insanity.
Go out, they will fly to Montana. They will get there. They will get on the water and they will go, well, if you want to catch fish, you're going to catch them on what's called a midge, which is it's the bug at the phase when it's in the water, not on the water. And they will say, here's the money for you coming and guiding me. Thank you for your trouble. I'm going home. I am not going to reduce, like it is the most pretentious act that a fisherman can do. Now, he doesn't think it's pretentious. He thinks that I'm a purist. But it is the most pretentious act that he can do to simply pay the guide and say, I'm not reducing myself. I'm not stooping to the level of wet fly or leech fishing. Because that's one of the things. They have a thing called a woolly bugger. And it basically is like, it's supposed to mimic a leech swimming through the water. And there are fishermen who will not fish it because it is beneath them.
Where are you at on this level of insanity?
I enjoy fly fishing. I have tied maybe a dozen flies, and I have caught something on 2 flies that I have personally tied. Okay, ever. And I'm a little bit exaggerating the pretentiousness of it, but it's not much. Okay. I go out to Wyoming, and there are streams that I will fish that are so hard for me to fish with a fly that I fish with an open face spinning rod, and I mimic a minnow as I'm fishing. And I am perfectly comfortable being a bottom feeder type of fisherman because I can catch a heck of a lot of fish, and I enjoy going out, and I enjoy hiking, and I enjoy catching fish.
Can we here?
More than being pretentious.
I'm gonna play a video.
Okay.
Um,
Is this gonna be the rebuttal to what I just said?
It's just you made me think of it, and every time I think of it, I like it.
Okay.
Lesson number one.
Yeah, this video.
Release. Now, in fly fishing, what we typically do is we catch the fish and then we release the fish. Any questions so far?
Yeah. What the hell are you talking about?
I know it's a tough thing to sort of wrap your mind around, Aaron, but let me explain it like this. We catch the fish and then we let the fish go.
Into a cooler?
No. Back into the water.
On a stringer?
No. It's like this. You catch the fish, right? And then you carefully remove the fly from the fish's mouth, get a quick picture of yourself with it, and then you let the fish go back into the river.
Well, then how the hell you eat them?
We don't eat them. You don't eat them. You let them go.
Why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, so that, you can come back maybe the next day and catch the fish again, or maybe you come back next week and catch the fish again, or that maybe gives somebody else a chance to come back and catch that fish.
So you catch the same fish over and over again?
Yeah.
So you're just into torturing fish? Is that it?
No, God, no.
You feel like a big man torturing fish?
No, it's not about torturing fish. It's letting the fish live, right? So it can have a nice, healthy, happy life and get bigger.
Oh, fattening them up. Oh, you keep them when they're big and fat. That's better eating.
No, we don't even keep them when they're big.
Why the hell would you catch a fish and not keep it?
Because fly fishing is all about getting out here and enjoying yourself. All right? It's about the nature and surrounding yourself, and it calms the nerves, Kevin.
You know what calms my nerves? Barbecuing fish. Smashing a fish on a rock. Eating eyeballs.
Yep. Sounds about right. Saying trout fisherman.
Uh-oh.
So that dude in that video wearing the waders has a little net, has a little box full of lures or flies or whatever. Every single person besides Jared, Ellett, and I looked exactly like that guy. There were 50 of them out there. They all look wearing the same crap, doing the same thing. We stuck out like a sore thumb down there, man.
Well, let me tell you another thing about that. So I took guys, so I had never, let's say 15 years ago, I had never fly fished before. Okay. Up till that point, never fly fished before. In fact, most of my childhood, I fished like my dad taught me to with a worm and bobber. Now, the way that they learned to fish with a worm and bobber was they used to fly fish, but with a bobber. They would chuck a fly out on the water. They called it a foxtail martin, I think. And they would have a bobber, and then they would have a fly, and then they would reel that fly in real slow, and as it came across, the fish would hit it. And they were just trying to catch fish to eat. And these Girl Scouts came by and were like, do you guys want these fish? We don't really want to clean them. Have you guys done well today? And they're like, we haven't done well at all. And these Girl Scouts just dumped like a pile of fish on my grandpa and my dad and his brothers. And they're like, what'd you catch these on? And they're like, oh, just like regular stuff like worms. And they started fishing with worms. In fact, my grandpa started a worm business selling to local gas stations at that point. That day, he started a worm business. So my whole childhood, we bobber fished for brook trout in lakes up in the mountains. And it was only like later that I learned that brown trout and rainbows didn't particularly like worms. They preferred live or flies. And then I took guys out to Wyoming maybe 15 years ago that had only fished, like you're talking about, shoulder to shoulder with other fly fishermen, and they had caught stocked trout. All of those trout you're talking about are stocked.
Right.
They grew up and they raised them up to like a pound or so at the minimum on pellets, feed pellets. And by the way, back in the day, trout farms there was no pellets. The trout farms would actually consign, I guess, with the counties, and they would go out and collect roadkill, grind it up, and feed it to trout.
Dang.
Back in the day, like 100 years ago, when they didn't make food pellets for trout. Okay. That's just a side note. But anyway, so these guys were catching trout, like casting like at fish they could see swimming in the river, and they were doing the whole, I'm a fly fisherman, I'm gonna catch a trout. And when they got out to Wyoming, they had no idea how freaking hard it was to catch a trout, basically. Like no concept of it. And they could not catch a fish out there because those fish are just naturally, they're born and they're just wild. They're actual wild fish. And it is that much harder. Now, if you go to a trout park, you're probably just as likely to catch them on a fly rod as you are on a spinner, because those fish are used to eating like something that's floating in the water that's dead. So like there's people who will be fly fishing. They have all the gear. They have a fly rod. And what they put on the end of it is a little piece of foam that looks like a salmon egg. And they just chuck it out there, and a fish that's used to eating, poop pellets comes up and hits it, and that's what they're reeling in. So like it's most of those guys that you're looking at are way more posers than you would think.
That's the feeling I got when I walked down there. I was like, what am I looking at here?
Yeah, they're posers. Like, and I'm not trying to be pretentious. I'm just saying, like, they think that they are like
elite.
I bought all the stuff, I'm elite, and I'm catching fish. They have no idea how hard it is to catch a real fish on a fly rod.
Yeah, because
I don't.
Those fish were everywhere in there. Like we just stand there. Like there, you can see a big rainbow swim by. Just fighting in the water, messing around, like hundreds of them.
Yeah. Now, when those fish are not hungry, a pro type fisherman can go in there and he can figure out how to get them to bite. He can figure out, what do I need to put in front of them to get them irritated or curious or whatever. A pro guy is going to be able to figure out how to get them to bite. Most of those guys that are there, probably the fish they're reeling in got released in there today.
Right. Yep.
They've literally not lived a night in the wild yet.
So what were you fishing with, Jimmy? Were you fishing with a spinner?
Had a little
Meps,
little rooster tail thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Jared.
So you might have caught a fish. You might have caught a fish that was in the wild for a little while and actually had learned to kill, eat, to hunt prey.
Yeah.
Versus a fish that literally got released out of the hatchery today
and has never seen anything other than pellets.
Hasn't seen anything other than pellets. The first thing it's going to go to is hitting those top water pellets, because every time a pellet hits the water, you've got to fight to get to it, or else you're not going to, you're not going to get.
Do you know how often those those hatcheries release into the streams down there?
Was
Depends
it
on
a
the
trout
place.
park or was it a trout park?
Yeah, it was.
Technically, did you have to buy
Yeah.
a permit for that day
Oh,
for that place?
no.
No.
It was not a trout park. It was just
So
a river, but it was right next to
It's like
hatchery.
the hatchery.
it's the runoff. Oh, it's right next to the hatchery.
Yes.
So I don't know about a place like that, but what I do know about a trout park is that, let's say that the trout park has a 20-year record of, what's today?
September 24th.
September 24th, 20 years running. The average number of fishermen that have come to these waters on this day is 800. They're going to release like a certain number of fish the night before for 800 fishermen. Like it might be 2, it might be 3, probably 2. If the limit is 3, they might release 2 fish per fisherman that comes on the 24th in the middle of the night on the 23rd.
Weird.
And then on the 25th, let's say that classically the average is 400. So they're going to release 800 fish that day in that mile of stream or half mile of stream. Or it's opening day at Merrimack Springs, and classically people are literally elbow to elbow, and there's usually 1,000 people there on opening day. They're going to release 2,000 fish the night before opening day.
That sounds so brutal to me.
I've fished there at Merrimack Springs at the bell in the morning with old Charlie Deal.
And you will hit fish for the first hour at the bell.
Yeah, if you go fish there and you don't go at dawn, it's not as good.
It's pretty slim picking. Because the thing is, like, let's say that you go there on a weekday when the average over the last 20 years is 20 fishermen. They might have only released 40 fish, and there's 60 fish worth of limits available. So there's 2 factors. One, those streams don't hold enough prey for those fish to hunt effectively. And 2, they only released, barely enough fish, new fish, to replenish the population if every guy caught 2/3 of a limit, right? So it is possible to, like, a lot of times what happens in those places is the fishermen who are wanting to catch a lot of fish, they'll go to where like the spring dumps into the river, and there's a whole bunch, sometimes there will be a whole bunch of fish held up right in that, like the fish can sense the water's getting too warm, so they'll be like trying to go downstream, but then they're like, I'm not going any farther. I'm not going to go out into the main body of the river. So fishermen that are not constrained by the trout park limit, will go down to the edge of that, and sometimes they'll just tear them up. But you never know, because like I said, a lot of those fish don't know how to survive on their own. I've caught fish like where the head was like this big and the body, like immediately it went back like this. They look like eels, because
that's funny.
That particular fish never did figure out how to feed and how to hunt on its own.
That one that Jared caught was nice and fat. Like it would have been a good eater.
Good and fat. Yeah. I mean, it may have been, it's hard to say, but it's possible that he caught a fish that was like had been in a while and had learned how to hunt. They usually come out of the trout park or out of the hatchery pretty fat. But if they've been out in the wild for very long and they didn't learn how to hunt, then they kind of languish away, waste away. So yeah, that's my trout fishing story, I guess.
Well, yeah, that's good. Part of me wants to go back down there and do some legit trout fishing, and the other part of me, after listening to your story, doesn't want anything to do with it.
I think it's fun, despite.
Dan will take you out to Wyoming.
Dude,
show me
yeah.
how the real trout fishing happens.
I mean, I've put up one video on it, and I've got another one in the queue. I just haven't finished editing it and released it yet. But yeah, that out there is legitimate. Like, they don't release fish out there at all anymore. It's probably been 100 years since they released fish in that stream.
So they're stable on their own now?
They're stable on their own. And in 20 years ago and out there, I've seen like 2 people ever. Other fly fishermen. I did.
Is it lakes or streams?
So both, but I prefer going to streams, and everybody else prefers going to lakes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you'll have to take me out there. Show me how it's done.
I would say it is worth going to a trout park just for the kick of it. Like, I think it's fun. There's a place Darcy and I know about that we can't really publicize the whereabouts of it, where we did not think that we would catch any trout, and we were hammering the trout one time. I mean, hey,
I don't know that talking
shocked,
about
Darcy?
It on here is publicizing it.
No, that's true. But like, I'm gonna look up. A trout fishing friend of mine was like, I could tell whenever I showed him it, he was like disappointed that we kept them. But I don't feel disappointed that we kept them at all.
Is that pretty normal for these trout guys to chuck them back in?
Oh, 100%. They want to come back and catch them tomorrow and the next day and the next day, for sure.
Well, that's just stupid.
I mean, it depends on the scenario.
Yeah,
it totally depends on the scenario.
Those 3 dudes standing on the bank of that river.
Well, you mean torturing fish?
Releasing them into a cooler?
So there's a couple of different ways of thinking about it, and I'm torn because I have that 5-acre pond lake at the Rock House, and I caught just today 30 bass out of it that were just stunted because there's too many of them. And there's so many people. Like, I literally told the guys, like, a couple weeks ago, if you catch a bass, get it out of the pond. There are too many. And I was watching them throw the fish back in the water. And I'm like, like, what is not registering with you? I need these fish out. There are too many. They are decimating all of the prey fish populations. The other thing is, like, the body of water that we caught those trout in, that area has washed out. I don't know if it would hold fish anymore. So it wouldn't even matter hardly if we had kept them or not, because they won't be there at that spot the next time we go there, because even if we hadn't kept them, they wouldn't be there. There was some weird anomaly where a bunch of them got held up there from winter or something. I don't know. Well, do you have any thoughts on why, Darcy?
No, I think that the conditions of that pool had been right up until then. And yes, if we hadn't caught those fish out of that pool, because upstream from there were plenty of sections of creek that were 1 inch deep.
Right.
So they're not going upstream, and they're maybe going to be able to go through the tubes to go downstream. Maybe.
But If they got
And
to the
then
river,
if they
it'd be
went
too warm.
downstream, they're just going to be into the river.
Right. So
yeah,
that
they
year,
just hung in that pool until they either got caught or moved, or flooded out.
or maybe in the winter, they get back to the river and they make their way back up to the other source of colder water or something. But they're not going to be there the next year.
No.
This was actually a pretty, I'm going to put it up. That was the take that day.
Mm-hmm.
And that middle fish is, I mean, you look at that creel bag, that's like a 16-inch creel bag that middle fish is pointed at. I bet that was a 18 or 20-inch rainbow. And those small
Nice.
ones.
Email me that picture and I'll put it up for real.
Those small ones were probably, weren't they probably like that? Like 12?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then we did find that other pool that had some good ones in it.
Upstream, that upstream pool?
Upstream, there was another pool. I'm going to say share. Create link. Share. Gmail. Is it Darcy, this guy called Fred?
Yeah.
I'm going to send you
Now
that
the
one,
whole
and I'm going to
world
send
has
you one.
Darcy's email.
The whole world.
Oh, man, the whole world has it. I'm going to send you
Way to
another
go,
one.
Dan.
Sorry, Fred.
Fred's gonna have to get a new email.
Not even be able to function.
Now, it would be cool to go fish that whole stream from one end to the other, because we now know the guy that rents the whole mile of stream, just to see if there's something else.
He rents the stream?
Well, he rents the land.
He
that
leases
stream
the
goes
pasture.
Oh.
Yeah. Once upon a time, there was a trout. Once upon a time, there was a trout hatchery upstream of this spot. So they could be, they could be a native population of trout in that stream potentially.
Yep.
Which one did I catch while you were in the water in your underwear? This one?
Not the biggest one,
second
but
from
one
the
of
biggest?
one of those bigger three for sure. The biggest one, okay. So there was the main pool that I was in my underwear in, and when you caught the one, and then there was maybe 30 or 40 yards upstream, there was another pool. And I had cast into that pool, and it wasn't more than like this deep, right? And so at 30, like a 30-foot cast, it was like this deep. And then as it came up closer to me, it was like this. And I'm telling you, I had that lure close enough to me that fish that was probably this tall couldn't be all the way in the water. And it looked like jaws.
Nice.
Making like a wake.
What's
coming
this
after
picture you're showing?
That's one of the bigger ones. Down, he's like, his tail is all the way up in the net. So that net is like a net like this big. And he's sitting there at the base of it on this side, and his tail's going like up towards you on this side.
Yep.
It's a good size fish, especially since it's not at a place where these fish have been stocked anytime in the last. I mean, that
60 years.
hatchery's been gone. That hatchery's been gone for 15 or 20 years for sure. I know that whenever our wives were kids, the owner of the hatchery would come down and yell at people for fishing that stream because they were like, those are our fish. And it's like, you got a hatchery,
and
they get out.
Yeah,
You
and
can't
they
control
weren't
that.
intentionally releasing into that stream.
Right. Right.
That
But it was
that was
downstream
just,
of their
it would
hatchery.
happen if like we got a massive rain or something. They would get flooded out.
Oh, and somebody would hop the fence and get into the real stream.
Yeah.
You know, Darcy, okay, that's the story that people have told, but here's the thing. Those trout can put on an unbelievable amount of size in one season. If they get into a stream that has good production of bugs, I forget
Yeah.
what it is, but like those things can easily double in size in one season. So it's
Hmm.
possible that if you had a really wet year and those fish had a hatch and some of those little fry got into the stream, that year they could end up this big. And the next year they could end up a foot 18 inches long in just the very next season if you had two good wet seasons in a row.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have to be that they hatched it and then it ended up in the stream that same season. It could be
Sure.
just the natural order of, hey, there
But
was a
I
couple
think
good
the thing
years.
is that still they weren't releasing fish. They
No,
were
right.
raising fish and selling them.
Well,
And so
so
even the fry that were getting out happened because of like overfilled pools and things from a rain or some
right.
mishap
Well,
on their part.
they weren't selling fish, they were selling fishing in their section between their spring and the stream.
Oh, okay. You
They
could
had like a
fish
little.
their place, not they weren't. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
But they were mad at
So
you for fishing downstream from their place because somehow their fish ended up in your part of the stream.
right. And and partly that people would just be driving along the road and just go stop on the bridge and cast in. So it wasn't
Mm.
even like the landowners locally. But um I mean, being down there, I'm way into this and I know we're way into the conversation about it. I'm so about trout fishing and like hatcheries and stuff. If I ever heard that that place was up for sale where they had the hatchery, I would totally be trying to figure out if I could get in on buying that. I think
Mm.
that would be a cool business. And if you could talk to the landowners throughout that section and be like, hey, if I paid you for rights to fish, could people that I rent to fish this couple miles of stream? And
Mm-hmm.
like that would be the coolest deal to
Yeah,
have
for
like
sure.
what almost feels like a naturally occurring trout population that you're just keeping, you're keeping it going. That'd be dream come
Is the
true right there.
hatchery like the system still in place, or did they take it all out?
No, they typically what they do is they just build these concrete like runs and then they
Yeah.
divert water from the spring through them and then the water goes back into the main stream. And so it's like you've got the mainstream and then you might have like 4 or 5 paddocks almost of fish and
Mm-hmm.
then you just raise up you hatch fry and you put them in there once they're big enough that you can keep them in a chute and then you would pull them and release them or pull them and sell them for other people to stock in their bodies of water. So the main thing for a hatchery is having the water source, the spring water that is cold enough to to raise fish in.
Mm-hmm.
But then like the other thing is downstream from that place, is it like 5 or 6 miles probably? There's a real like a government run hatchery.
Yeah.
6 miles. And those
Yeah.
same
Something
fish
like
could
that.
just as easily have been in the main river during the winter
Mm-hmm.
and then found that cold water from that spring fed creek and just been, like released fish last year that made their way up there and nobody happened to notice them and fish them out. and they're just up in that thing, just eating every bug and every critter that they can for one summer to get as big as those pictures were. Like those suckers are amazing growers if they have a food source. So
I don't even know where
you
that
ate all of
place-
them.
Do what?
You ate all of those trout that you
actually,
caught?
we gave them away, didn't we?
We gave them to our mother-in-law, who has a condition where she cannot eat red meat. And so she can eat chicken, turkey, or not turkey, I don't know, and fish.
I think turkey.
She can't eat any mammal meat, so she can eat quail, turkey, fish. And so we have given her quail that we've raised, and we gave her those trout, despite the fact that she had never cooked a trout before, I don't think, if I remember right. And I was like, oh, that's too bad, because you're probably going to ruin the first one. But whatever.
I think she figured it out.
But yeah, so, okay, so since we're planning this trip, we should do a trout. Ellett would love going to a trout park and catching fish and cooking them at a campsite. Judah and Asa got a kick out of it.
Where's the nearest one?
Times. The nearest one is
Bennett Springs or something.
Bennett Springs. Yeah, it's like 2 hours from me. It's not far at all.
Let's plan a trip. Ellett he loved what we did at the dam the other day, but obviously he didn't catch anything, and we had no idea what we were doing.
It isn't hard, but I will tell you that the last time we went, my friend Wayne and 3 of his sons went, and myself, Asa, and Judah. And you're allowed 3 fish per 3 keepers per day. You have to use barbless hooks, and they have it sectioned where it's like flies only, barbless hooks, and then like as you go down the stream farther, you can do more and more. And when you get to the very end of it, you can do live bait. So like they have different sections for different types of fishing. I limited out. I got my 3 fish like almost immediately and started helping Judah and Asa. And within the first hour and a half, we had 9. And Wayne and his guys, all 4 of them together, caught 2 fish. So it like, but here would be my thing. If you have fished, or if he has fished with like, you know what I mean by like your spoon here, hook here.
Yep.
Bass lures. And you just have to learn that you have to keep them moving at the right pace to where that thing does its action. If you can keep one of those going and you have the feel for that, then you can pretty easily transition to a spinner for a trout with a trout lure and an inline spinner, and you can tear them up, like at least in that first couple hours of fishing. I have a video.
Yeah, that sounds like
dude,
fun.
I should find that video, Darcy, and see if I can. Let's see if I have it here.
What video are you talking about?
So I have a video where I was literally gutting one of the fish that we caught at a trout park, and other fish were coming up and eating out of my hand. And I actually grabbed fish straight out of the water.
That's pretty cool. That's I don't think I've ever done
totally illegal. Okay, I don't know if
yeah, whatever.
Don't tell anyone I did this.
Illegal.
Okay.
Let's see if I actually physically caught one here or not. I don't know if this is going to work for you, Darcy.
Should we put this behind the paywall?
This is behind the paywall. I don't know what's in this video.
Only our paid subscribers can watch this one.
Let's see if you can play this one.
Okay.
So I was gutting a fish, And this is a trout, like, just keep in mind, this is a trout park. These fish have been, I do catch one in the video.
Okay, here it comes.
This is at that time when I caught 3, we caught 9 between the 3 of us, and the other guys caught like 2 between 4 or 5 of them, 4 of them. Don't, like, let's pretend like nobody's ever going to see this.
It's when we're Venice Springs, and we're getting
Oh,
fish.
shoot, he said it.
We can't actually keep them because this is chumming, and that's not allowed. But they're just coming back. They come straight back.
I catching like 3 fish.
That's pretty funny.
So literally, like, the reason they're coming up is because I'm actually sitting there gutting a fish and chunking up the stuff and tossing it in there.
That's
And
funny.
they're just
They're
that,
hungry.
like, they're that hungry in a trout park where they're just coming up eating the gills and eating whatever. Yeah. You're probably not supposed to do that, I'm guessing. But
Who was
I'd
that
say
in
you
that
can.
video anyway?
I don't know.
I couldn't see his face
on that
Who
guy.
was that?
I didn't see a face. There's no evidence.
That hat looks kind of like the signature hat of this guy I watch on YouTube, though.
Mm-hmm. But his identity is the odd thing is, I think I know what you're talking about, like with the video on the YouTube, and I think that guy's tried to steal your name for his channel. Not Your Average Guys, I think, is the name of his channel.
It might be.
Which, I mean, how?
So are you saying that could be me?
Could be you. Yeah. Shoot.
All right, well, let's plan a trout fishing trip with the boys down to Bennett Springs.
The other option would be,
I might have to bring some girls on it.
Oh, that's fine.
I don't have any
so
boys.
the other option would be to plan a trout fishing trip to, what's the one down by Salem, Darcy? South of Salem. You remember? I think it flows into the Current River. I'm gonna look it up.
Well, the rivers down there are Jack's Fork and the 11 Point and the Current.
Montauk.
Oh, Montauk. Yeah. That's further.
What's that go into? Yeah, Montauk goes into
on the Current.
So,
yeah.
So here's the thing. Totally unrelated subject, but we're an hour and 13 in. So our brother-in-law is having a house built, and I'm thinking about going down for like a weekend as they start framing it or siding it or something and helping out. And I might potentially go down in the next few weeks to go try to help on that, and then possibly go trout fish at least 1 or 2 mornings of, like, because literally, like, the first hour is the only hour that's worth fishing. First hour or 2 at those places. I don't know if that would work, but that's like a 4-hour drive. Bennett is only a couple hours south of here. So, anyway,
yeah, that'd be
just
fun.
a thought. Yeah. I just used up the entire time talking about trout fishing. I feel like if I was trying to pretend like I wasn't pretentious about it, I didn't accomplish
You
that
failed.
goal, did I? Fayetteville.
You didn't do very good.
Everybody probably thinks I'm the pretentious snob about trout fishing now.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
I'm sorry, guys.
So,
I really am.
a guy like you down there fishing below the dam with all your gear on, next shoulder to shoulder with all the other guys that look just like you, and you see me and my brother and my son come walking in, no waders, shorts, sandals, couple lightweight rigs. What do you think?
What I'm supposed to think, or what do I actually think?
Actually,
Oh, I actually
You
think like,
oh man, those guys are gonna catch all the fish.
gonna catch all the fish. What I actually think is you're gonna have genuinely more fun because you're probably gonna catch more fish if you know how to cast with a spinning rig. The thing that I'm supposed to think is something that is I'll give you an assignment. You got to watch a movie called A River Runs Through It. Have you ever watched that
seen it.
movie? Where
Mhm.
I'm supposed to look at you and think of the drunk girlfriend's brother with his hooker friend who are going to get a sunburn on their naked butts because they're going to go fishing with worms and fall asleep in the middle of the day drinking. I'm supposed to look at you and think that you are criminals and that you are the worst of society. But what I'm actually going to think is those guys are going to catch all the fish. That little kid is going to catch a 20-inch brown trout. And all these guys are going to go home and be like, I got a nibble today for the first time ever. Yeah. However, again, down in Montauk, I was down there one time watching a guy fly fishing the actual spring pool, and he was a legit fly fisherman. And that's the thing. He could take a dry fly. So we're now in 17, and I'll try to keep this short. Here's the thing about a dry fly. A dry fly doesn't weigh anything. You can't cast it on a regular reel, right? There's no weight to it. It won't fly out there on its own. So what you're using is you're using the weight of the string like a whip, and you're going 10 and 2, 10 and 2, 10 and 2, right? And when you cast a dry fly, and you imagine like the crack of a whip being like you're able to get the motion of that going so fast that it cracks back on itself and makes that sonic boom sound, the crack. You're doing the exact opposite. You're trying to put that fly out there so smooth that when you set that fly on the water 30 yards out in front of you, it doesn't disturb the water. So the fish is swimming under the water, and all he sees is just the fly. Your string doesn't disturb it. Your leader doesn't disturb it. Your tippets doesn't disturb it. And he sets that thing on there so smooth that all the fish knows is that a fly or a mosquito or whatever it is you're trying to attempt to mimic just set itself on the water. And I saw a guy freaking pulling one fish after another out of one of those pools. And I was like,
wait, but you said he was fishing in the spring pool?
Mm-hmm.
That's not allowed in most of those places, right?
Well, maybe it wasn't the spring pool, but it was a very still, it wasn't in the flowing river. It was just like, there was just fish way out there, and it was just still. And I assumed that it was a spring because usually the water just like comes up.
Roils up.
And
yeah.
Now,
and in the
Bennett,
spring,
that's the thing.
Normally in the
at
spring
Bennett,
pool, there's like
lunkers,
20-pound trout in there.
Why can't you fish a spring pool?
Because Merrimack,
that's the way it is. But
and Big Spring,
Down at Bennett, you can fish right on the spring. It's just part of the river. It's just like the river just starts out of nowhere, and you can fish right on the spring at Bennett.
Okay.
And I think at Montauk, it's the same way. You can fish right on the spring. Yeah. But here's the thing. The way that the spring, if I remember right, at Merrimack is, if you tried to wade into it, you would fall and you would die. Like it's like a hole.
600 feet
right?
deep or something.
Yeah. So at Bennett though, it goes real gradually down. Like there's gravel bed and it goes down and then it's deep over by the spring.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's dangerous in the same.
I mean, it's not actually 600, but I think it's like 90 feet deep or something right there.
It's as deep, right off, like cliff, right?
Yeah.
I think that's part of the reason is because of how the spring is, not because
that's why
they're
they
trying
don't
to
let you.
protect. I think so.
The fishies.
I'm not sure of it.
Huh.
But
that's probably true.
So like, if you get to that point, then like respect to you. But you're probably also so good that you don't need to go out at the buzzer. You don't need to go show up right when the buzzer goes off and be elbow to elbow with everybody. You can fish any time of day and you're probably going to be able to
I don't think
fish.
I want to be that good. I like to enjoy fishing.
If you could just get that good immediately, instantaneously, and you could just be like, you know what? Turn over this rock and be like, I can tie that. Yes. They've
Right.
literally guys that they got a rig right here and they go flop and they have a little thing and they start tying a fly, right? Or they go sit down on the stream bank, and they start tying a fly and they make the fly. It's like a whole thing. Like it's
weird.
That's good. Most guys are not that good. Most guys are paying $8 a fly and then tying it onto like a half-pound tippets and losing it, like on their first hook, the first fish they hook into. Yeah. I like it. I like all of it. Even the worm fishing. I like hooking into a fish on a worm. I'm okay with it. I'm not a snob. And if you weren't catching a fish and you were near me, I'd show you how to catch a fish if I knew. I mean, I'm not saying I would know, but like there's some guys that are out there, they ain't gonna show you what they're using to catch a fish.
Oh wow.
And then there's other guys who are like, oh yeah, here, and they show you what they're catching fish on that day, and you're like, thank you, please, you know. But anyway, there you go. An entire show about fly fishing. Did we get anywhere else?
Yeah.
I don't think we got anywhere else.
No, that's it.
Sorry.
I think it's a good time to end though. It's just fly fishing done.
Is it really 11:45?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It is. You got 14 minutes to put your
14
thing
minutes
in.
to write my report. Yeah.
Yeah, your report. They're not really saying how deep the spring is
At Bennett?
at Merrimack.
I'm gonna say one more thing on fly fishing.
Okay.
I would like to spend $1,000 and stock my lake out at the Airbnb property every fall with trout.
Do it.
I just don't know if I would get the money back by renting it out to people who wanted to fish for trout. I don't know.
You wouldn't.
No.
No.
Because there aren't many places to hunt. There aren't many places to fish for trout in Kansas City or around Kansas City. But
there's one in
conservation department stocks it in the winter, Is that it? The Kearney one?
They stock it every so often. They just do a dump, and then there's trout in there.
What kind of a body of water is it?
It's just a pond.
Jesse James Lake.
Yeah.
So it's only in the fall because they can't stock it in the summer because the trout won't survive. Unless it's a spring-fed lake. Is it a
No,
spring-fed
it's
lake?
not.
And they
No, it's just a normal runoff lake of some kind. Maybe creek fed.
yeah. So
But
like
yeah, they just dump them in a couple times a year, and you can go up there and fish them.
yeah, I would have to get
It's
it rented.
3.3 acres.
3.3 acres. So it's smaller than my lake. But
Does it
it's
say how
probably
often they
just
dump
if
them
you,
in?
they probably just do one dump a year. They do them in some years they do it in Belton at the Cleveland Lake. Not every year.
Yeah, it's kind of a big thing here in Kearney when they do it. Everybody talks about it and goes up there and catches a trout or two.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, you'd have to rent. I think I'd have to get a minimum of 3 more rentals in the winter than I get. And a couple winters, it's been completely frozen over. So it's like hard to imagine that somebody'd be like, oh yeah, we're going to go out there and trout fish. And then a month later, it's frozen over and they can't catch anything. They can't fish. So what would you do? Like you spent the money to stock it and then you turn around and refund the people who rented it because of trout fishing. I don't know.
I don't know.
It'd be cool, but I don't
On
think it's
the
a
Missouri
it's a
Department
doable
of
deal.
Conservation website, it says it lists it as a winter trout fishing area.
Mm-hmm. That'd be the other thing to do, would be just to go out.
Trout permits are required if trout are kept. There you have it.
Just go trout fishing right up the street from the house.
Yep.
It
Yes,
doesn't
we
say
should.
when they stock it though.
Mm-mm. Does not. So far.
So according to this, there's basically no details on it, when they do it or anything in Cleveland Lake.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see any. I just searched the Jesse James Park Lake on the City of Kearney website, and it doesn't talk about fish. Wait. So the first thing that I came across said it was a 3-acre lake. This says it's a 100-acre lake. Which is it, Jimmy? You've been there.
There's no way it's 100. I would say 3 acres would be accurate.
Okay.
Is it 2 times bigger than Jeremy's Lake? His is about an acre and a half, right?
Yeah, no, I would say 3 is pretty accurate. Maybe Watkins Mill is 100 acres.
Maybe that's what this is. Maybe it's coming up here and it's not.
Do they do
not
them in
actually.
Watkins Mill?
I don't know if they do any trout release in Watkins. I've never heard of it.
Well, I got to get my thing written, guys. So
All
I'm gonna
right.
either start or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, you got like 7 minutes.
I got 7 minutes. I can do this.
All right. Well, I guess we can call it a show. It's been the average, not your average, the average, not your average guys show tonight. Thanks for joining, Rory. We'll
Okay,
catch
does
you
Rory
next
watch
time.
tonight?
I
Rory,
doubt
if you're
it. He
watching,
says he thinks it.
comment.
Yeah, Rory, come on. Comment.
Come on, buddy. Come on.
Zero concurrent views.
He's off to college now, so he probably doesn't have time for
Yeah.
us.
No,
He just quit on
he's
us.
too busy. He did say that he thinks about us on Tuesday nights and thinks about joining in,
He
but
did
he
say that.
hasn't. So, oh well, maybe one day. We'll see you then, Rory. Bye.